Severance is fast becoming my favorite thing on TV. It is just utterly surprising and just wowing me on almost every single level. I kind of can't believe how much I'm loving it. It is nailing its premise and continually expanding and developing this utterly bizarre and horrific world they've created. All of the acting is just exceptional. Everyone is continually bringing their A game and just doing exactly what they need to do. Everyone is so unique and different, but all kind of congealing into this one feeling that this show has, this bizarre, moody, atmospheric, chilling, horrific series. But then it has these oddball moments of comedy and lightheartedness and just this bizarre, upsetting feeling for so much of it. But then there's this kind of charm to it that's really hard to describe. Like, just watching it, it's kind of blowing me away. And last week I mentioned just the mood, atmosphere, and the music was really working for me. Once again, of course, I'm loving it this episode, but what really stood out to me this episode, and mostly in like the workplace, like the outside world, that's looking real nice too, but in the workplace, the way everything is framed and composed and just structured, everything is so immaculate and precise and clean, and it has this beautiful feeling where, like, on one level I'm enjoying it, just like looking at this beautifully shot show where every single frame is just a piece of art. It is so gorgeous to look at, even though we're in this sterile, white, nothing, work office, and like we're going down these giant, horrifically long and endlessly dull white hallways. But the way the camera moves, and as John Turturro at one point is walking back and forth through the halls, the way the camera like utilizes and makes us feel in these hallways is just incredible. I mean, honestly, the filmmaking and how they're presenting the workplace through cinematography and framing and just all the things, it's honestly just so amazing. I'm like almost taken out of it with just like sheer joy. Like, I'm just pure excitement at watching something so beautiful and so well crafted on a stagecraft level, on a filming level, all those things. But then, very quickly and suddenly and horrifically, I am brought back down into the actual world of Severance, which is an absolute horror show. Like, it's been a thriller, it's been a comment on workplace culture and capitalism and all those things, but this episode really made me just go like, no, this is now a new subgenre of horror. Workplace horror. We open with Helly in the break room, the most horrific place in this show, the torture chamber, it may as well be called. Calling it the break room, this weird twist on like the break room is like where you go to have your break. Like, the best part of your work day is when you're sitting there in the break room, chilling, having a coffee, having a banana, chatting with everyone, and you're not working. It's great. And so to twist that and to pervert the break room into a torture chamber where they have to continually say this one line, it is so horrific. And the way this opening is framed and shot, and the way that everything looks is so unnerving. It's so sickening. This episode just starts off so scary, and it just put this like feeling in my gut that just like didn't leave for the rest of the episode. It is really shocking and horrifying. And I kept kind of thinking in the last few episodes, I hope what Lumen is doing, they're all being secretive, but I hope what they're doing with the Severance is, doing something good. Like, they're trying to learn something about the brain and try and fix or change something, or, but they can't tell these subjects, they're still subjects of this. This episode really made me go like, no, I think it's going to go into that cliche, big corporation business, real evil. And what they're doing is sinister and evil, because that opening is just like cutthroat and brutal, and the way she walks out of there at the end, and there's just that moment with her and Adam Scott, and they're just standing there, and there's just like a beat, and then he's just like, how many times? Over 1,000, she says. Horrific, heartbreaking, just got to my core. So Helly this week is once again trying to get out of that workplace. She's trying to get out of Lumen, and this week it kind of really ramps it up a notch. Like that moment where she's like, got the slicey thingy, and she's like, I'm gonna cut my fingers off, I'm gonna do it. The idea of hating your workplace so much you're gonna chop your fingers off? We all have bad days at work. We all would rather be sitting at home watching Severance or anything, or doing anything. But just that idea really cut to my core about the idea of how much she loathes it. And then that kind of doubles up later when she goes to kill herself. I don't think she's dead, but the idea that she's going to that extreme so quickly, we're up to episode 4, so scary. It's so real. Like, just that despair people have of being trapped at work and feeling like, well, I've got to pay bills, I've got to pay rent, you know, you need to support people, you need to do this, you need to support yourself, and you need to have a job. And sometimes people feel so trapped in their jobs they can't escape, and the idea of quitting isn't possible. For Helly, it's literally not possible, because outside Helly is apparently a monster, but I don't know, it just really, the way this episode is like so heightened and sci-fi and ridiculous and crazy and over the top, but just the, you know, the themes and the ideas of what it's really saying about work culture really started to kind of hit home in this episode. And it's an exceptional show that's doing everything right, and it's starting to upset me quite a lot. Like, the scene where she goes and she leaves and she's all like, I'm off, guys. This is the point where I tell you, Mark, to go to hell. But guess what? You're already there in hell, Mark. And, you know, she does a whole thing, and we all know when those elevator doors close, they're opening back up again, and she will be there. Like, we know that. It's that inevitable, horrifying kind of feeling of just like, no, Helly, no, it's... That video, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. I know you think it's going to work, but whatever the hell your Audi is thinking, it's not going to work. And then it happens, that moment the doors open and she sees them all there. She sees a video. Just, I don't know. Like, they've done it a few times now, but this episode, the way that she would leave and just the elevator doors would open again and the same person is just standing there waiting. There are so many days where I would wake up, get to work, and once I clock on, just kind of look at my surroundings and be like, I feel like I was just here. I feel like I just clocked off. But in reality, I've come home, I've had a couple of beers, I've watched awesome TV shows, I've played some video games, I've hung out with friends, I've done things, you know? But you still kind of feel like when you get back to work so quickly, you know, the next day, it feels like it's like, that repetitive, draining feeling of being like, I just did this. I was just here. And that like stressful, heartbreaking despair that you feel, but then to heighten that where you just literally like clock off for the day and then the doors open and you're clocking back on. Oh, this show upsets me on a level I cannot explain. It is so upsetting. It is so horrific. It is so terrifying. It's heightening and like it's taking everything to the extreme. But because everyone's playing it so real, it doesn't feel so outlandish where I'm like, oh, that's just ridiculous. The way this show goes so extreme and so over the top, it somehow brings it right back down to the core issue of this show. Like that feeling of despair and being trapped in your 9-to-5 job. But then there's also characters like Mark who have accepted it, and John Turturro who, you know, he's living for it. He's accepted it. He's embraced that it, you know, it's his work life. And then that's that kind of parallel of people who are trying to escape their home lives, and maybe their home lives, like something tragic has happened, or they're just depressed and they're bored in their own home life. They don't have a social group of friends or a partner or anything like that, and so they live to work. And there's that kind of awful balance, and you feel that when you're at work. Like there are people who are like, you know, striving. They're not taking a break. They'll work through their lunch break, and they'll just keep hitting margins, and they'll keep going up and up and up, and they'll get prizes and things like, what was it? Pancake day, waffle day. And, oh, we're giving you waffle day. It's Pizza Friday. It's like, that's nothing. That's nothing. And I think that every week I watch this, it's coming out on a Friday. It's going to really depend on what, because I work weekends every second weekend. So I feel like every time I watch this show, I'm either going to be like, oh my God, oh, this is so intense. I've got to go to work tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Or I'm going to be like, oh yeah, weekend. Oh, look at these guys, Severance. Yeah, you know, I feel like I'm going to have different feelings each week depending on if I'm going to work the next day or not. And I think that just kind of speaks to the power of this show, and what it's really succeeding at is like kind of really making you think about the real world outside of this crazy Severance sci-fi universe, and just thinking about work and that work-life balance and all those things. And it's honestly just fascinating. Like, I don't know, today I was like at work just trying to get through the hours, just trying to get through the day, and I kept thinking, oh, it'd be so good if I could just black out the rest of the day, clock off, and get home and watch Severance. And then I'm like, that's what Severance is literally about! Ah! So this episode gets to a point where we actually see outie Helly talk back via video to the workplace Helly, and she's like, and this really shocked and surprised me. Like, this was kind of the most shocking moment of the episode. This most like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh my god, she's gonna reveal something, it's gonna be tragic, heartbreaking, or she's gonna reveal a little bit about the company and what she knows on the outside, or something like that. But no, she's just like, you, workplace Helly, you think you're a human? You're not a human. I'm the human. You're just a little puppet. You're a little puppet on the strings. And if you do anything, I'll make sure you're alive and I'll torture you forever. And it was just like, what the hell? Outside world Helly? Like, what kind of monster are you? It was just so shocking and horrific and just, I don't know, brutal and like cutthroat and just, it really upset me. It really confused me as well. I was kind of like, wow, I don't understand what's going on now. Like, I don't know, what has she been told? Where is she coming from? I'm really, really curious, and I'm really, like, happy with the restraint they're showing, and they're not showing us much of her outside life. Like, we don't see her the way we see Mark on the outside world, and I just cannot wait for that moment that we kind of get that reveal of everything. It's gonna be so cathartic and, or potentially very, very terrifying, and maybe she's just the worst person ever. But I don't know, I'm really curious what people think and what people take away from her video message, because that really like kind of shook me, because I've kept thinking that maybe she's got a tragic backstory, you know, she's done something she can't live with, so she wants to, you know, black out half her time. But it doesn't appear to be that way. Someone in the comments had a really good theory from last week that, you know, she's being kind of tricked and that she's doing something for the greater good, you know, for the greater good. And, you know, trying to like, I don't know, help the universe, help the world, and she's being lied to in that way. I think that could still be true with this video now in play, but I don't know, it just kind of really shook me. I'd love to hear people's theories and comments of where they think she's coming from now that we've seen this video. John Turturro and Christopher Walken, they had a little bit of a budding friendship, and I kind of had a feeling like John Turturro was kind of having a bit of a crush on Christopher Walken last week, but then Christopher Walken makes the move this week, and he puts his hands on his hand, and it's so cute, it's so adorable. There is something so, like a breath of fresh air to see two men, sorry if I get their ages wrong, but like around like 50s, 60s, like, you know, this isn't like two sexy 20-year-old hunks flirting in the workplace. Like, these are kind of, you know, older men, and the way they're flirting, the way they're kind of embarrassed and shy about it, and the way he's like, were you embarrassed by it? He's like, no, I wasn't embarrassed. Were you embarrassed? And I'm just like, it just brought such warmth to my heart. Like, this show coldens and saddens my heart. And this was just bringing that warmth to kind of balance everything out, so it didn't feel so kind of horrible and like filled with despair. It was just such a beautiful, beautiful little romance blossoming. I just loved it. The performances are amazing. It's so great to see these two, you know, juggernauts of acting to come and do these really little oddball comedy romance scenes in this insane sci-fi universe. They're so cute and adorable. I absolutely love it. And then, before these two lovebirds can go have sex in a closet, John Turturro opens a little door and he sees that there's a billion people working in the Christopher Walken department. So clearly Christopher Walken is lying to him. And so tension's gonna happen, and they're gonna, you know, their relationship's gonna fray. And I don't know, that was a little disappointing and heartbreaking to see, but classic show, giving you something you love and then being like, actually, smash. Screw you. Broken now. Yeah, there we go. That's how the episode ends. That, and it kind of twisted into the montage of Helly hanging herself. Just the idea that she's already at that point is just so scary, so terrifying. The real world kind of implications of people being so trapped, it just makes me sick. I don't think she's actually dead though, otherwise you would have showed the whole scene of her twitching the legs and it dying, then you would have ended the episode with her, she's dead. It's more of like a shock twist, cliffhanger. Stay tuned for next week. Is she alive? Is she dead? She's obviously not dead. I don't think the series will work if they replace Helly with another third person. She's a spectacular actor as well. She is absolutely killing it. I love her so much in this show, even though every time she does something, I'm like, oh, don't get sent back to the break room. Oh! So we have the reveal that Petey did die when he fell over with the cops. So that was, I don't know, really, really disappointing and heartbreaking. It was just kind of like, oh man, I didn't think he would die so quickly in the series. I'm hoping that other characters kind of get unsevered so we get more of that kind of trippy back and forth kind of mind stuff that was happening with him. I found that really, really exciting and interesting. But then we get that funeral scene where Mark goes to the funeral. Mrs. Medium is there as the old crocodile lady pretending. And now we know that she's totally sus. It's just her performance is so like upsetting. And we get that horrific but brilliantly like filmed and presented montage of them playing the Enter the Sandman and him and his daughter having fun, which is just so sad to see at a funeral, and Mark not really being able to connect, but knowing that like he knows something about it, and just, oh, it was so heartbreaking. But then as she's drilling into his brain as well, like, oh my god, these people are going crazy to get back what I have to presume is the Severance chip. So that also makes me feel like this is super, super sus. But maybe they're just trying to protect their product, because what they're doing is going to revolutionize stuff. And even though they might be saving lives with whatever they're doing, they want to make the money and they don't want another company to get their grubby little hands on it. Or something like that. Who knows? So I kind of thought with Mark being the main character, like we've got Adam Scott in the lead, that he would kind of more quickly be like, Severance is screwed up, I gotta get unsevered. And then with Petey coming into so quickly, I thought that he'd kind of more embrace that side of it. You know, and then he finds the map and he keeps the map. But then in this episode, he shreds the map. Really intense, really interesting. It's kind of weird to see Adam Scott on that one side play someone who's kind of at times quite unlikable, whereas in almost everything I've seen, I mean, Parks and Rec's the first thing that really comes to mind. Pretty much everything else I've seen, he's just so likable, like impossibly likable. Like I'm just like, I love him so much. And in this, at times, I'm like, I don't think I like him at all. And so it's really, really kind of fun and interesting, but also sad to see Adam Scott in kind of this role. And then kind of to twist that, we throw him out into the, you know, the outside life, like the real world. And he's just so broken. He's so sad. That moment where he's up against the tree and at first you're like, what is he doing crawling into the woods? And then just that, oh God, that moment of realization when you're like, oh, the car crash. This must be where she crashed. Just, oh, my little heart that feels nothing is beating with sadness. It just, oh, that scene got me so good. It was so devastating. Adam Scott is just so good in this show. It really is just an exceptional performance. I can't wait for his character in the workplace to be like, actually, Helly, you're right. Severance is cooked. Lumen's cooked. Let's burn this place to the ground. Or maybe that will never happen and this show will subvert my expectation in a way I don't want. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment below. I'd love to know what everyone else thinks of this series. Is everyone like, this is the best thing on TV right now? Or are people kind of finding issues with it? I'd love to know either way. I mean, what issues do you have? How could you have an issue with this show? It is so good!